Today we're talking about avoiding a problem in the first place. Best practices to keep your veggie plants healthy. I'm curious what makes your top list, because I think you see a lot of different recommendations go around.
Right. So, I thought it would be a great way to start with this because, we gardeners encounter a lot of challenges that can impact the growth of our plants. So it might be a disorder that isn't caused by insects, it's not caused by disease pathogens. Or maybe you do have a disease in your garden that's caused by bacteria, fungi, or viruses. So that can be really frustrating and discouraging. But what I want folks to know is there are so many things we can control. That way we can help our plants grow and either completely sidestep many of the problems or at the very least keep the plants healthier and better able to resist those challenges. So I think number one is to choose a sunny location for your garden. And that really applies to brand new gardeners if they're looking for a spot to grow some vegetables. It's important to know that vegetable plants require a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of sunshine each day in order to grow and produce well. Now, if you already have a garden spot, I wanted to point out something important which I discovered this year myself. Take a look around the area and see if any trees or hedges are casting new shadows on parts of your garden and give them a trim. So keep an eye on that sort of thing. Plant your crops at the right time. So cool season crops like lettuce and spinach need to be planted in the spring, and warm season crops like tomatoes and peppers should be planted after the danger of frost has passed. If we plant crops too early or too late, the plants are more susceptible to problems and they might even die. Another thing that's important is to space your plants appropriately. When we crowd them together, it makes it harder for them to grow and produce because they're competing with each other for moisture, nutrients, and space. Even worse, disease pathogens can spread more easily when the plants are crowded. It can even make it easier for insects to move from plant to plant to plant. So check your seed packets or your plant tags or your vegetable gardening books to learn what the ideal spacing is. You also want to support your plants. This is going to help them grow well, and it keeps the plant foliage off the ground where there might be some disease pathogens that can easily spread onto the foliage. The main crops I'm thinking of would be things like tomatoes, peppers, peas, and cucumbers. But it's a great idea to also grow squash family crops like winter squash and small pumpkins up on supports, partly to save space in the garden, but also to get the majority of their foliage off the soil, which in turn reduces the chances of disease. And I have to add, it looks really cool. I grow my pumpkins and winter squash and cucumbers on an arbor that I created with a livestock panel. Wow. And yeah, it just looks really cool. It's a nice focal point for the garden, and it's a fun way to grow them. You also want to make sure you're giving your plants the right amount of water. And I have to say, it's like the Goldilocks thing. You don't want to do too much. You don't want to do too little. If you overwater your plants, that's a very quick way to kill them because their roots just can't handle being wet all the time. In addition, when the plants are stressed, that makes them more susceptible to disease problems and also makes it more difficult for them to produce a normal crop. Early morning is really the best time of day to water. You also want to take good care of your soil. Now, you've probably heard that there are billions of microorganisms in just a teaspoonful of soil. It's important that we disturb those microorganisms as little as possible. So you don't want to turn over the soil or use a rototiller. And remember to add nutrients like organic compost to the soil. You don't have to turn it in because the nutrients are going to work their way down into the soil by themselves or with the help of those soil microorganisms. Feed your plants, but not too much. It's just like with watering your plants. Too much is not a good thing. And I know we all tend to love our plants a little too much, and we get a little carried away with the fertilizer. The important thing to know is that different types of nutrients do different types of things for certain vegetable crops. Some of them benefit from extra nitrogen if they're just producing leafy green growth. Others need extra phosphorus if they need to bloom and set fruit, or if they need to form a large root like carrots and parsnips do. Always follow the label directions to the letter, because this is a case where more is definitely not better. You also want to monitor your garden on a regular basis. And hey, I think it's fun to walk around the garden, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. It's part of the most fun part of it.
Exactly. And you might spot something really cool, like your first ripe tomato of the season. That's cause for celebration. But you might also notice an insect problem, or maybe that some of your plants aren't getting enough water. And another thing that goes hand in hand with monitoring is keeping a garden journal, because when we take notes on things that went well or didn't go well, we all become better gardeners year after year after year. And of course, I saved one of the most important things we can all be doing for our plants and the environment for last, and that is to go organic. The problem is synthetic pesticides kill both the bad bugs and the good ones. They are non-selective, and that means they can't tell the difference between a damaging insect and a beneficial one. Synthetic fertilizers provide way more nutrients than our plants can handle, which means the rest go into our groundwater. It's better to go with organic fertilizers. In addition, herbicides kill soil organisms, plus they persist in the environment for a lot longer than we all realize. So please use organic methods and products to grow your garden. And I'm hoping that all of these suggestions will help your crops grow really well.
I would say one of the most important ones for me has been the walking around. And, as life gets crazy, sometimes it's kind of difficult to do that, or at least I've found it difficult to spend maybe an hour just wandering aimlessly, kind of, because you almost want to be wandering aimlessly so you can take in all the different details of the garden.
Right.
And then that's when you notice all of the opportunities to implement the practices that you just laid out, Susan, because how would you know if you didn't do, if you didn't space correctly in a particular bed, or you fertilized too much, unless you had the ability to kind of wander around and check it out. But I mean, the higher level thing for those listening is doing all of this puts your plant in the best position to resist most of the problems, and certainly a lot of the pests and disease that you're going to run into.
Watch the full episode right here and subscribe for more new episodes every single week.